Over the next 7 days, I'm going to build the biggest LEGO medieval army I can with 7 factions and over 150 unique minifigures. I'm going to be competing against Holly and Sands to see who can build the best army, and later this week, we're going to be facing off in a mock building challenge. Let's get started with day 1. I began the day with a trip to Bricks and Minifigs Grand Rapids to try and get as many miscellaneous castle-related things as I could find. I got a couple of minifigures from the case, and I also picked up this Ninjago dragon, the Creator 3-in-1 giraffe, and the Hungarian horntail dragon from Harry Potter. I'll be using all of these later in this video. Once I got home, I unboxed all the packages that I ordered in preparation for this video and spent the next couple of hours getting everything sorted into trays. This is going to make everything a lot more efficient going forward, but that's about all I've got time for today, so let's move on to day 2. The first faction I want to build is the Fright Knights. This faction is pretty old, and they recently made a return in the Series 25 CMF line with a figure called Basil the Batlord. I don't have many duplicates of this figure, and I'd like to get some more to customize. I went to the store to see if I could find some more CMF boxes so I can add to my ranks, and I was lucky enough to find half a box. These boxes had the wrong type of QR code for scanning, so I just had to open all the figures I bought to see what was there. I ended up getting 0 Basil minifigures, but I got some others that I can trade with friends, so it's not a total loss. I'll just have to work with what I have on hand. Of course, Basil will be the leader of my Fright Knight army, so I'll just leave him as he comes. I'll make 2 other faction leaders by stealing the heads from these vampire minifigures. I used a Basil CMF as the base for this minifigure, gave him 2 short axes and some shoulder armor. I took the same approach with the female faction leader and gave her a dagger and crossbow for her weapons. With the vampires completed, it's time to give them an army of men under their control. I made a King's Guard with a halberd and grill helmet, and I added a second one to the army. Next, I wanted to create some heavy knights, so I gave them some full face helmets and long swords and added them to the ranks. I used a Viking torso with the Basil CMF legs and a black hood to create some archers to include in the army. Lastly, I made crossbowmen with nasal helms to give the faction some more firepower. This group is looking pretty good, but I think something's missing. Some of the old Fright Knight sets came with dragons in them, so I want to build a dragon for the army. I bought this Ninjago dragon and built it according to the instructions. It looks alright, but it definitely doesn't match the vibe of the Fright Knights, so I started modifying things. I added a bunch of spikes to the dragon, and I redesigned the head so it would fit in with the theme a little better. Once I finished it, I decided that Basil would be the perfect rider for him. Even though there aren't too many figures in the Fright Knight army, the dragon definitely gives them a major advantage over other factions without giant creatures. I'm on day 3 and I've only built 1 faction so far, and the build challenge is approaching quickly, so I need to get a lot of stuff done. So today I'm trying to complete the Crown Knights and the Forestmen factions. The Crown Knights were first seen in 2007 and have been out of production for well over 10 years, so they aren't really readily available. Thankfully, I was able to get quite a few parts from Bricks and Minifigs the other day, so I have enough to put something decent together. I built this king using the torso and legs of the official figure, and I gave him a blue cape with a gold crown and a longsword. To make the queen, I took the dress piece from a wizard, a torso from the Queer Eye set, and I gave her a cape and a short sword for her weapon. I used the wizard CMF from a couple years ago and equipped him with a brick-built staff and a shield so he fits in with the faction. I also made a personal guard for the king with heavy armor, a gold cape, and a longsword. After making the faction leaders, I built the king's guard with heavy armor, grill helmets, and halberds. I added them to the army and moved on to making the infantry. I gave this soldier a longsword, nasal helm, and a shield, and then I built 4 more to create a small unit. I used a similar design for these spearmen, but I didn't give them any shields because I'm starting to run out. For the archers, I had enough of these really cool kettle helms to create a unit of 6 soldiers, and then I moved on to building the cavalry knights, which wear heavier armor and use the last of my Crown Knight shields. I don't have any special barding to add to these horses, so I had to use the standard saddle, and I added some gold flags to the mounting points. I'm really happy with how this unit turned out. I didn't expect that I would have this many Crown Knight torsos, so I'm glad I was able to create a relatively sizable and diverse faction with what I had on hand. Since we're done with the Crown Knights, the Forestmen are next on my list. This faction was first introduced in the late 80s and most recently appeared again in the 2022 Lion Knights Castle. Thankfully, this means that the pieces are available on Pick-a-Brick online, so I was able to order a bunch of parts for them without spending too much money. Starting with the faction leader, I used the standard torso and legs and gave him a fur pelt with a dual molded spear and shield. I built the son of the Forestmen leader along with his daughter and gave them both short swords as their weapons. Next, I made this heavily armored armored knight who joined the Forestmen as a defector from the Lion Knights faction. After that, I built a bard with his medieval guitar. I also made this man who wields a crossbow and his son who's following in his footsteps. The majority of the rest of the Forestmen faction will be made up of archers and crossbowmen, just like this one with a standard bow and quiver. I built a total of 10 archers to fill out the rest of the ranks. Lastly, I made this flag bearer and stole these reindeer from my Santa's sleigh Lego set. I gave the reindeer riders spears as their weapons and mounted crossbows to the sides of the saddles. The Forestmen are a super unique faction, and I will definitely keep expanding on this army while the parts are still in stock on Pick-a-Brick Online. Now that this faction is complete, I'm back on track heading into day 4 to prepare for the build challenge.
I had an idea for our castles. What if we did some sort of castle scene with a couple of set parameters?
Do you think we should go with like just a base plate, 32 by 32? I think that should be pretty manageable for all of us.
Yeah, that sounds good. And kind of going off of that, I feel like maybe if we should do 32 minifigures there, but I feel also like there should be something else as well.
Well, to benefit the less fortunate here, maybe we should also reference each other's factions and or channels in our build.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea. I like it.
Fun.
As much as I'd like to get right into this build challenge, I still have 4 factions to make, so let's get started with the Lion Knights. Just like the Forestmen, the Lion Knights have also been available on Pick-a-Brick Online for a while, so they're pretty easy to buy in large quantities. For the King of the Lion Knights, I used this figure called the Lion King, which is actually from another faction, but I think he'll work just fine here. I swapped out his head to make him a little bit younger and gave him a fancy sword from the Harry Potter theme. I gave the Queen a cape and a dagger from Lord of the Rings, and I moved on to making the Princess. I gave her a cape from the Falconer CMF with a bow and arrow and a quiver. I made this minifigure for the Prince with a fur pelt and the same cape as the Princess, but I didn't give him any weapons because I have something much bigger planned for him. Next, I built the King's personal guard, who is an older man with heavy armor, a longsword, and a dark red cape. I built the royal guard for the King's family and gave them halberds and nasal helms. With the nobility completed, it's time to move on to the infantry. I assembled the heavy infantry, giving them shoulder armor, long swords, and helmets. I made 4 in total and followed them up with a unit of spearmen led by this soldier with heavy armor plating. I also built a light infantry soldier with a short sword and made 3 more to complete a small unit. The final foot soldiers in the Lion Knights army are crossbowmen with pearl dark gray kettle helms. I was able to purchase barding for my Lion Knight horses, so I built 4 heavily armored horseback riders and mounted them with spears and flags attached to the side of the bardings. The army's looking pretty good so far, but I also want to give the Lion Knights a rideable beast. I bought this Creator 3-in-1 set and built the lion from it, which is way bigger than a minifigure. I modified it by creating a large wooden saddle and mounted it to the back of the lion. I placed the prince in the commanding position on its back, and now the faction is complete. I'm obviously getting pretty far into the realms of fantasy by adding a giant lion to this army, but I think it's really unique and it would certainly make battles a lot more interesting. I'm starting off day 5 with the Dragon Knights, which were out around the same time as the Crown Knights. I'll only be using the red ones for this faction since I wasn't able to get a hold of any of the green Dragon Knights. Let's start by creating the leaders. I thought it would be fun to have this faction led by a group of brothers. The oldest one uses an old Dragon Master's helmet with the sword of Gryffindor and a kite shield. I bought the Dragon Knight horse with barding, so I'll have him riding that at the front of the army with his brothers and the rest of the faction behind him. I gave the second brother heavy armor and a battle axe on a chain that he can swing at his opponents. The third brother wields a crossbow and a spear. The final leader of the army is a dragon-riding wizard with a large staff. The Dragon Knights need a dragon, so I modified the Hungarian horntail from Harry Potter by removing the stand it comes with and adding a saddle for the wizard to ride on its back. I think the look of this dragon actually matches with the Dragon Knights quite well, and it really didn't need many changes at all. Moving back to the rest of the army, I built 2 heavy knights that have some oversized scimitars, 2 royal guards with halberds and Dragon Master's helmets, and this guy who has a mace and a kite shield. I also made a light infantry soldier with a short sword and a spearman who doesn't get a shield because I don't have enough of them. I made 3 of each of these guys to increase the numbers. Lastly, I built this flag bearer and 2 archers with black hoods and capes to give the army some range. The Dragon Knights look like a pretty menacing force, especially with that Hungarian horntail. They're unique, I love the color scheme, and I think I'm going to use them for the mock challenge. I've got 2 more factions to go though, so let's keep moving. The Black Falcons are going to be my largest faction because I've been buying these minifigure parts off of Pick-a-Brick Online for a while now. The King of the Black Falcons has some heavier armor and a longsword. I don't have any crowns left on hand, so I'll have to grab one for him at another time. I gave the Queen a black cape and the key of the keep. The king and queen of the Black Falcons are less hands-on with their army, so they elected 3 commanders. The first commander is over the sword-wielding infantry of the army. I gave him a helmet from Little Brick Armory and a longsword. I made a heavy unit of 3 soldiers with long swords and beefy armor. The light infantry soldiers have short swords and nasal helms in black. I built 12 figures to fill out the unit. There are also 4 knights in this unit with grill helms. They ride horses with bardings that have the Black Falcons markings on the side with some blue flags. The second commander is over the spearmen and crossbowmen. He also has a custom helmet and heavy armor. I made a unit of 8 spearmen with spears, nasal helms, and shields. They are followed by 4 soldiers with crossbows and black hoods. The last part of this unit is a group of 6 heavy knights with halberds. The final commander is in charge of the archers. I made a unit of 16 archers under the control of the commander with black hoods, bows, and quivers. I'll definitely be expanding and personalizing my Black Falcon army more in the future, but I think this is a great start and a good end to day 5. Today I'll be building my Orc army, but first I'm heading back to Bricks and Minifigs Grand Rapids to see if they have anything I can use to make things more interesting. I found these wargs from Lord of the Rings, and I also bought this Chima Big Fig that I actually think will fit into this faction pretty seamlessly. I'll be basing most of the Orc army off of this CMF from Series 24, but I'll also be including goblins, trolls, and orcs from other themes as well. The Orc army is led by 3 elders. The first one has a large axe and a long beard. The second elder uses a brick-built battle axe and wears shoulder armor. The last elder has a crossbow and a spiked shoulder pad. There are 2 Uruk-hai that make up the heavy unit with large shields and maces. I also built 2 orcs with battle axes and 3 orcs as sword-wielding infantry with swords from Lord of the Rings. I used nougat orcs to create a unit of 4 crossbowmen, and I used dark tan orcs as my archers for the army and gave them black short swords for close-range combat. I used an Uruk-hai as the flag bearer for this faction, and I built a unit of axe and spear-wielding trolls from the fantasy-era castle theme to increase numbers even further. I ended up with 4 wargs from Bricks and Minifigs, and I gave them all riders from the Orc CMF with different hair and head combinations. The final addition to the army was this Chima Big Fig, which I think will be great in battle for moving siege engines and breaching castles. I really like how this faction turned out. Each orc is unique, and I think these guys will make great opponents for the Dragon Knights in the mock building challenge, which I only have 1 day left to build. Today is all about the build challenge, and I've got a lot to do in order to finish on time. I'm building a castle wall with a tower and some terrain to show a siege happening with orcs attacking the Dragon Knight's castle. I built up the main wall with lots of details and moved on to making the tower. I wanted the tower to be about twice the height of the wall with plenty of areas around the roof for archers to shoot down on any attackers. With the castle wall finished, I moved on to making terrain. I used trans black tiles to create a small portion of the moat around the castle and built up the area behind it with filler plate. I would have liked to have included more variation in elevation, but time isn't on my side, so I just need to keep moving forward. I built this siege ladder for the orcs to scale the castle wall and added 2 orcs onto the ladder before placing it onto the build. This spearman is attacking the orc at the top of the ladder, and there's an archer and one of the Dragon Knight faction leaders next to him. On the ground level, I added this tree that I stole from the Horizon Zero Dawn set to save some time, and I placed the other Dragon Knight faction leader next to it on his horse. The orc faction leader is getting ready to fight, and I added some other orcs approaching the ladder on the other side of the build with a few of their soldiers wading through the moat. On top of the tower, I placed an archer with holly and sand sitting up high, hiding away from the battle. The final thing to add was the Hungarian horntail with the Dragon Knight's wizard flying overhead. This build turned out way better than I expected, considering that I only had a few hours to actually get it done. Now that it's complete, I can lay out the entire army together all at once to see where things ended up. I built a total of 165 different minifigures for this video, and almost all of them were completely unique. This was a lot more fun than building a Star Wars army like I've done in the past because of all of the customization. And now I have tons of factions to use in future medieval videos. Let me know which faction you liked the most in the comment section down below. Don't forget to check out Holly and Stan's armies by clicking on the end screen now. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good one.